To invite to the stage Brad Schmidt. He is very heavily involved with public safety awareness and applications and tools to keep us more involved, and he's actually got a bachelor's degree in natural resource management. So we'll get his presentation loaded up here and then let him take the stage.
Thank you. Well, thank you to the Conference Planning Committee and to CCNC for having me. My name is Brad Schmidt. I work for the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control, which is part of the Colorado Department of Public Safety. And back again for a second year in a row here to talk to you guys about COTAK. We're the Colorado Team Awareness Kit. And while they're pulling up my slides, by show of hands, do any of you guys know that your agency has signed up for COTAK? Raise your hand. Oh, terrific. So we are now in our third year of building the system, and we're closing out our first year of full operations. And so I'm excited to share some of the updates that we have as far as where we've been going with COTAK and talk about our future a little bit as well. No. So again, we are one of the 5 main divisions of the Colorado Department of Public Safety. And within DFPC, I work for something called the Center of Excellence for Advanced Technology Aerial Firefighting. And yes, that name was picked by a government committee. We are located over in Rifle on the western slope. We've been around for about a decade now. We were created in response to some of the bad fires back in 2012 and 2013. You think of the High Park Fire, Black Forest Fire. The legislature came together and in response to those incidents, they basically allocated more resources to wildland firefighting. We picked up our Helitak program for the first time, and we also made an investment in intelligence capabilities for wildland fire, and that was the multi-mission aircraft program. I'll talk a little bit about that program later in this presentation, but in that same legislation, the legislators decided to also create a research and development office to keep DFPC and really the whole Colorado public safety community on the cutting edge of technology, initially for wildland firefighting, but as you'll see, what starts in wildland fire often branches out into other disciplines, and that was definitely the case with this COTAK technology. So we got together and started looking at research and development to assist with wildland firefighting. And one of the challenges that we saw was, how do we create a real-time map of a wildfire? How do we map out where the wildfire is burning currently and where our firefighters are located, especially when they're out of their vehicles, they're on foot or an aircraft. And as we did research and development into that question, which was back in 2015, 2016, one of the technologies that we hit on was something called the Team Awareness Kit, or TAK. And the Team Awareness Kit was developed by the US military back when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. Our special operators had very similar requirements where they were struggling to map out the battlefield, especially when they exited their vehicles and were dismounted. They wanted to call in close air support and do all that kind of stuff. And right around that time is when the first commercial smartphones were becoming widely available. So, you know, historically, the military, they would contract with a Lockheed Martin or a Raytheon or someone like that. And after billions of dollars in years, they might get something that met their requirements, or maybe not. But SOCOM, they like to think different. And so they saw these commercial smartphones entering the market, and they tasked the US Air Force Research Lab to look at ways to use smartphones to assist them in their mission requirements. And that was really the genesis of TAK. So TAK was first fielded back in 2010. Initially, it was just a special operations community product that was used by them for primarily situational awareness of knowing where the good guys are, where the bad guys are, as well as things like calling in close air support digitally. But pretty quickly, the technology started to make it out of special operations into the broader Department of Defense. One of the things that really initially attracted us in Colorado to this technology was that it's owned by the federal government to this day. So it's not something that we have to buy from a vendor. It's actually provided to us free of charge by the federal government. And so the military pretty quickly adopted it across all branches. It's now used by many different allied militaries. And right around the time that we started doing research and development into it, it started to cross over into federal law enforcement. So a lot of those three-letter agencies that do tactical operations, they field it with their officers in a very similar way to how the military does it with mesh networking radios and SATCOM backhaul and things like that. It's now made it really into the entire footprint of federal law enforcement. So the Border Patrol, the FBI, the DEA, and many, many others, they all have deployed this technology across their enterprise. So if you are a Border Patrol agent, you're issued a phone that runs this app, and just like how the military uses it to map the battlefield, you're able to use it in your federal law enforcement duties. So for several years, we did research and development into TAC. We deployed it on individual wildfires, individual music festivals, things like that. And we saw a lot of promise in the technology to improve the situational awareness of first responders, make them safer and more effective. But we also saw that we would need to do additional work to make this technology transition from just an R&D project into a 24/7, 365 solution. And so after the next round of bad wildfires, including the Marshall Fire, there was another opportunity to tap the legislative funding stream and try to do some good work with it. And we were fortunate enough to be able to take advantage of that. And in 2022, we got a one-time funding appropriation to start building out COTAK, or the Colorado Team Awareness Kit. And really the goal was to take what we had learned through R&D and take this existing TAC technology that's provided for free by the federal government and customize it and harden it into a statewide situational awareness platform for first responders in Colorado, and then distribute that technology free of charge to as many agencies as we can in the state. And so we started that process in 2022. In 24, we were able to secure permanent funding for COTAK. So we are now a permanent program of the Colorado Department of Public Safety and have staffed up and beefed up our capabilities accordingly. So we are now much more in the outreach and trying to reach potential customers and really get this app into the hands of first responders at all levels of government across Colorado. And so really our goal as we started building this out was to make this a capability that could scale. So it can be used both for daily operations within a single agency, as well as expanding to multiple agencies or even allowing people across the entire state of Colorado to collaborate during those large disasters. And I'll get into what exactly that collaboration capability is. It obviously looks a lot different than what we're probably used to through LMR, but hopefully you'll see that it complements LMR in a variety of different ways to improve the situational awareness of our first responders. So as we started to build out COTAK, we really wanted to build it on this foundation of local control. We're a local control state, and we did not want to come in as the big bad state government and dictate terms to you guys. We want to make this technology flexible and able to meet your needs. And so the very first thing that we did to try to achieve that goal is we've actually delegated authority down to each agency that signs up for COTAK to manage their own users and to create and manage their own channels in the app. And we'll get into what exactly a channel is in COTAK and how that is similar and different from LMR channels. But we delegate that authority out. We now have 8 FTEs working on COTAK. That's nowhere near enough for us to directly create all the accounts for every firefighter, every cop, every search and rescue volunteer in Colorado that might want to use this software. And so what we've done instead is we have delegated down to each agency. So if Rattlesnake Fire wants to use COTAK, they get to create one or more administrators who can create the accounts for all of their firefighters. Someone gets hired by the agency, that administrator can create the accounts for their people. If they quit or get fired, they can delete the accounts all themselves without having to call the state, and they can create channels for daily operations. Where we come in as the program team is if there's a need for multiple agencies to collaborate, we can set up mutual aid capabilities, just like there are on the radio side, that can be available to counties, regions, or even the entire state of Colorado. So thanks to that decision item where we secured permanent funding for the program back in 2024, we now have a permanent path forward to continue offering this COTAK service free of charge to all first responders in Colorado. And I'll brief you on exactly what you get that is free, and then how to integrate with other systems that you may already have that provide you geospatial data that you might want to integrate into COTAK. But we are a free capability for first responders. They can be at any level of government as long as they're physically located in the state of Colorado. We offer this capability for them. And then the funding that we have from the legislature, it pays for 8 FTEs to work on this program, and it pays for us to deploy the technology. So everything that you're about to see that connects your phone to COTAK, it's all living in the AWS GovCloud. So that's our cloud computing provider that runs all the servers that drive COTAK. So we're all in a secure and highly reliable cloud computing environment. And then we also actually are able to fund some public safety enhancements to the underlying apps themselves. The apps are funded primarily by the federal government and the US military, but we are able to address some small pain points where the military might not see a need to add a feature into the apps, but we're able to fund it and contract with the software developers, make those enhancements to the apps, and then make that app available to the entire community. So that's where we've been growing the program. As I said, we started development in summer of 2022. We first took the system live in October of that year, and then we were kind of in a limited beta where we were just kind of building word of mouth until the summer of 2024, and that's when we took the training wheels off, took the beta label off, and said that the system was operationally ready. So since that time, we've definitely seen an uptick in our users. We're closing in on 3,200 registered users at this point. And that's across over 300 different public safety agencies. So everything from volunteer fire departments and search and rescue teams, all the way up to some federal law enforcement partners and state law enforcement, state fire, folks like that. So speaking of that, who are our users? I like to say basically we're a third law enforcement, a third fire service, and a third everybody else. We do, as I've said here, we accept any type of provider of public safety services as long as they're physically in the state of Colorado. We will allow in private providers as well, such as ambulance services, if they have a sponsor in government that's willing to sponsor them access into COTAK. So that's who our users are. I would say we have had most of our usage actively in the law enforcement community. We definitely want to grow and make sure that we are an all hazards tool for public safety. So fire service, both structure and wildland, search and rescue. But really law enforcement has been our most eager early adopters. And we'll show some of the capabilities that have really piqued their interest here in just a second. So COTAK, specifically what it is the servers, the infrastructure, and the training that let Colorado first responders use the TAK apps. And the TAK apps are, again, provided free of charge by the federal government. So there is, for Android devices, there's ATAK. iOS devices have iTAK. There is a Windows standalone program called WinTAK. And then we have actually built, from the ground up, a web-based client for TAK called CloudTAK. And that is less for field operators, but if you're a dispatcher or you're back in an office environment, you can just load a web page that shows you all of the mapping information, the same as you would get through your mobile app. You can see that stuff through a website. And so kind of the analogy back to LMR is we've got Harris radios, we've got Motorola radios, we've got Kenwood radios. As long as they speak P25 and are in the same frequency band, in theory, they can interoperate. That's exactly how there's ATAK, iTAK, WinTAK, and CloudTAK. They're all different programs, but if you connect them to the same server, that is our COTAK server, you're able to exchange the information and see each other's locations and operate together through the COTAK system. So what does the system actually look like? This is kind of a high-level graph of how it's structured. Up here at the top of the slide, this is where your real human beings interact with the software. So most folks, again, you're a volunteer firefighter, you download the app onto your phone, and then you enter an email address and a password that's given to you when you set up your account, and that connects you to the TAK server that's running up in AWS GovCloud, and that is how you get to see the dots and all the fun stuff that is COTAK. So the other way that users can interact with us is they can go to our website, which is cotak.gov. That gives us training content, they can request technical support, learn about the COTAK system. Any user can do that. And then if you're that special person that's the agency administrator for your agency, you can access special administrative tools through that COTAK.gov website. And that's what allows you to create the accounts and to create the channels for your users. We hold all of that authentication information in a secure database, and then that is provided to the TAC server. And so if someone downloads the app onto their phone, it's kind of like they bought a radio off of eBay, right? It doesn't have anything programmed into it. It's basically just a paperweight until it's been programmed. So any civilian can download a TAC or ITAC, but they'll only see their own location on it until they connect it to a server. And so for COTAK, that TAC server will only let you in if you have a valid login. And so that's how we control access. Sometimes people ask me if we allow civilians into COTAK. We do not. We are just a system for first responders. So you have to have a valid login to connect. So our TAC server is kind of the beating heart of our system. We can connect it to other TAC servers. That's a process called federation. We have done that with the FBI's TAC capability. They are very active out of the Denver field office using TAC for their field operations. And so we have connected now 5 different task forces that operate in Colorado. So if there's Rocky Mountain Safe Streets is the most prominent example. If there are local TFOs that are on that Safe Streets task force, they have COTAK accounts. The Bureau people have their completely separate tax system where they have their accounts. Because we're federated together, if we turn a channel on the COTAK side and the Bureau people turn an equivalent channel on their system, everybody will be able to see each other's locations and operate together as if they were all on the same system. And so that federation has been really key to us on the law enforcement side, allowing us to interoperate with our federal partners that might not be allowed to download this COTAK and connect COTAK on their federal issued devices, but they have their own federally approved programs and they're able to interoperate with us through that link. So that is the first federation that we've done. We're starting to look at doing some federations with the National Guard and certainly looking forward to growing that in the future if there's requirements from our users to set those up. And then the final piece is something called the ETL server. ETL stands for extract, translate, and load. And that is our Swiss Army knife of getting external data in and out of COTAK. So we fully acknowledge that COTAK is not the end-all be-all for everything map related in public safety. We've all got CAD, we've got vehicle tracking feeds, we've got warranted covert tracking data sets that we want to bring that together and see ideally all of that information in a single app on a single map. And so we provide a free service to try to achieve that goal through this ETL server. We've actually hired a full-time geospatial developer who works for our program. And if you have a CAD feed or a vehicle tracking feed or any other type of mapping data that you want integrated into COTAK, you work with our team. Ultimately, we work with the developer, translate the data into the format that TAC speaks, and then we provide that information to this ETL server. It automatically handles that translation process, passes it to the TAC server, and then out to our users in the field. And I'll show you a couple examples of what that looks like here now. So thanks for bearing with me through all the flow charts and whatnot. This is the kind of fun part of showing the actual capabilities of what this app gets you if you are a first responder using it. So really first and foremost is just the ability to see the locations of your friendly forces, your officers, your first responders. So this is a video clip from Thornton PD. They're one of our early adopter agencies for COTAK. And this is them using it to provide location tracking during a high-speed chase. And so you'll see in this clip, there's a bunch of dots moving around on the road grid. The little blue arrow that kind of looks like the old space asteroid video game, that is the location of the user that's filming this clip. And then all those other little rainbow colored dots that are around that user are other police officers involved in the high-speed chase. This is now running the clip in real time. And really what I'm trying to emphasize with this is that we're able to provide location tracking about every 1 to 2 to 3 seconds on the other officers that are involved in this high-speed chase. In this case, you can hear a little bit of the audio. They're starting to get onto I-25. And so you can see the whole column of officers changing course and starting to head southbound. And so the apps, they rely on the GPS in your phone or tablet. That's primarily the way that we locate you, is through that GPS on your phone. And then we're relying on network connectivity to share that location with other first responders through our server. We work with any provider of internet connectivity: FirstNet, Verizon, T-Mobile, Starlink, anything, we don't care. We also support both government-furnished and bring your own device phones. So again, we don't have any stipulations around what types of phones we allow to connect to COTAK. And so in this case, you're seeing that in an urban environment, when folks are traveling at high speed, we're getting those updates on locations every few seconds. The app has an algorithm to determine how quickly to share your location out. And so if you're a wildland firefighter or search and rescue on foot, it rolls back to about every 60 seconds to 120 seconds of sharing your location out with other users of the system. And so here's another video clip. This is actually a time lapse. This is from a search and rescue mission in Mesa County. And what we're showing off here is, again, you can see all the dots that are marching up the hillside of the search and rescue volunteers that are responding. And we're able to see this data in 3D. And then we're also able to see a custom KML, in this case overlay, of the hiking trail, annotated with helicopter landing zones, known hazards, things like that. This is a trail called the Palisade Plunge. It's a pretty prominent mountain biking trail. And so when it opened, the BLM and the search and rescue folks, they meticulously mapped this thing out to identify and kind of pre-plan how they would handle any rescues that occur on that trail. And so you're able to see, in this case, we can actually see the operation taking place in real time and reference it to those custom features that were created and loaded into the app. And so chances are, if you've got any sort of custom map or map book, we can load it into this app and display it underneath the locations of your responders. So definitely, if you have specific questions, email us. We'd be happy to chat with you on that. But this is an example of what that looks like in action. And so I mentioned that ETL server that brings data in and out of TAC. This is an example of that in action. This is a time lapse of a drowning response call over in Jefferson County. And all of the dots that you see moving around in this clip are not people using the TAC app on their phone. They are all using CAD through JeffCom. And because we have integrated JeffCom's CAD system into COTAK, people that are using the TAC app on their phone are able to see all of that CAD and AVL data mapped out in the app itself. And so you see a little red eye, that is the CAD location of the call. We don't provide PII on the CAD incident. It's just kind of the basics on the nature of the call, who's responsible for it, and stuff like that. And then because the responding units have CAD running in their apparatus, we're able to see their locations as they respond. So we've got little fire truck icons, little police officer icons, and those are the units that are driving into that incident. And so sometimes people ask, how should we use TAC? Should we run the app on our phone 24/7? Really, again, it's up to you. We want to drive this to local control, let you pick how you want to use the technology. We have some agencies that do use it all the time. Whenever they're on duty, they have the app running on their phone. Because that's using GPS, it does impact the battery on their cell phone. They've decided that that's worth doing, though. Other agencies, perhaps, in this case, West Metro might find it more advantageous to rely on CAD when they're in their vehicles, and then if they step out of their vehicles, get away from their MDT, then they can turn the app on their phone and see the locations of all of that information from CAD right on their smartphone. So just some examples of how you can use this technology. A new one, since I last spoke here last year, is covert warranted trackers. So we've had a lot of interest from some of our law enforcement partners that are involved in fugitive apprehension, stolen vehicle tracking, stuff like that, where basically they get a warrant, stick the little magnet-mounted tracker underneath the car, and they're able to track it as the bad guy's driving around. That's a classic example of a lot of those agencies tell us that they've got one map for their good guys, where they're at, and then they've got a whole nother map for where the covert tracker, the warranted tracker is located. and whoever's in charge of that task force is having to juggle between multiple screens as they're engaged in an operation in the field. We are able to securely basically combine that data into a single pane of glass. And this is a simulation where we borrowed one of these and had our staff run around with it for the day. But you're basically able to see that red diamond is a covert tracker, the magnet-mounted tracker, and then all the yellow dots are our staff playing a drug task force and basically engaged in surveillance on that covert tracker. And then you're able to see them kind of converge on the tracker's location and take our suspect down. So Safe Streets is doing this all the time. Some of the other law enforcement task forces around are also engaged in this type of operation. And this is a great example of we provide the data integration of that covert tracker free of charge and access to TAC for our good guys free of charge. It's on the agency themselves to pay for that warranted tracker, whether that's covert tracker or Optimus tracker. They pay the bill for that. We get the API from that tracking platform and then integrate that into COTAK on a free of charge basis. It's a best of effort kind of thing, so we can't make your vendor, whether it's CAD or trackers, we can't make them provide us an API, but if they do provide access to the data in a way that our developer can take it and integrate it, we will provide that service free of charge. So that's the law side. Let's switch to wildland fire. This is a time lapse of the Gultra fire, which was last summer in August, just west of the city of Golden. So this is an example of us doing that initial mission when we were doing R&D into this technology of wanting to see where the wildfire is burning, see where our firefighters are, all on that single map. And so in this time lapse, again, I'll run it one more time for you. We have an initial kind of fix on where the wildfire is. That's that orange polygon. You can see the locations of volunteer firefighters bopping around, and then you can see, it's a little hard to tell, but our state multi-mission aircraft, our MMA, gets on scene. You can see it spinning around. We can see where its camera is looking. And then once it maps out the location of the wildfire, within minutes, that information automatically is able to be displayed in COTAK, and that's that yellow shape that appears on the map, and that's the precise perimeter of the wildfire. Literally a few minutes from when it's collected by the firefighter in the aircraft to when it's available on the phones of the firefighters on the ground. So that's something that we're really excited about. We're going to try to push forward on because we think there's a lot of potential for that to improve the safety of folks on the ground. As a former wildland guy myself, I definitely can attest to the confusion, especially during those initial attack fires of just trying to figure out where the fire is burning, where the other crews are. This is a technology that we think has a lot of potential to improve the safety and effectiveness of wildland firefighters. So in addition to working with the big aircraft on the fire side, this is an example of working with a smaller aircraft with a drone on the law enforcement side. So this is a Skydio aircraft that's being run by the Mesa County Sheriff's Office SWAT team. And this is using the iOS version of TAC. We can see the live video feed of the drone, as well as we can see the location of the drone. It's that little yellow dot, and even where the drone's camera is looking on the ground. So the drone is looking from south to north, and we're able to see the live video from it all within the COTAK system. So this is a Skydio aircraft. We work with several different drone providers and drone integrators to integrate UAS into COTAK. It's a relatively complicated process. So again, probably contact our support team, and we'd be happy to assist you because the options of how that looks vary dramatically depending on what type of drone you've purchased and what type of software you've purchased for the drone. But again, we're happy to work with you to try to investigate ways to integrate those aircraft into COTAK. So that's kind of the highlight reel of what the main features are that TAC brings you. Of course, to get any of that stuff, you primarily have to have connectivity of some sort. If you are completely outside of connectivity, the TAC apps, they're perfectly fine as a kind of more of a hiking GPS app where they'll still show you your own location as well as any maps that you've downloaded onto your phone. So if I was responding to a wildland fire and I lost all of my cell service, I lost all of my connectivity, I'll still be able to see a dot for where I'm at as well as the map of the wildfire. I just won't be able to see the locations of the other first responders that are involved in the operation. And so The app certainly works best when there is cellular service from some provider. We're well aware that much of Colorado does not have reliable cellular service, and so we're certainly always looking into the technologies that can solve that problem, make that better. We've had a lot of success with Starlink. We see that Starlink is absolutely able to sustain the connection to show all of those dots to you in the TAC app. And so if you're able to have a Starlink terminal either in your vehicle, or they now have them small enough where they can be carried in a backpack and run off of a USB battery, that can certainly solve all of your connectivity issues. We also work with smaller satellite devices, satellite messengers such as Garmin inReach and Spot. If you provide, again, you have to pay the bill to buy those devices and keep them running. But if you handle that, then we will take the API, the data key to those Garmin inReaches or Spot devices, and integrate that for free back into COTAK. And that allows a commander or dispatcher who does have internet connectivity to be able to see the locations of all of your people that are running off-grid with those satellite trackers. We also have investigated several different mesh networking radios. These have that pedigree from special operations where you think of Navy SEALs with radios that have too many antennas sticking out of them. That's typically a mesh radio that allows them to stream video, do push-to-talk communications, and exchange internet data all through a radio mesh where they're operating. Those are relatively successful with operating with TAC. Of course, there's a lot of stipulations about frequency bands. Line of sight connectivity is typically required to make those work, but we're happy to provide advice on those. And we actually have a couple caches of those radios that we're willing to demo and lend out to COTAK member agencies. And then finally, the connection back to LMR radio, and specifically the Colorado DTR radio system. We have long been aware that it is possible to get push-to-talk GPS location information provided through a P25 trunking system, and that in theory we could use that information to map out where first responders are in a platform like COTAK. We are now engaged in actually trying to bring that into reality and pilot that as part of the COTAK program. So what we are looking at doing, and what we are in the process of negotiating with Motorola and purchasing right now, is a 100 radio license pilot project to enable location on push-to-talk through the state DTR system, and ultimately deliver those locations into COTAK. And so to do that, we are purchasing something called an intelligent middleware server that plugs into one of the DTR zone controllers. And that will deliver the locations of the 100 radios that participate in this pilot project. First responder pushes push-to-talk. The GPS location of that radio is transmitted through the DTR network to the zone controller, and then out into COTAK, where we'll display it in the app. So we're still working on setting that up, but we believe we'll be able to start implementing that pilot project late in 2025. That QR code there, if you scan that, or certainly you can email me afterwards, my address will be up on the last slide. We'd be happy to take agencies that are interested in participating in that pilot project. It is through the Motorola Astro side of P25, so it does require you to have a Motorola radio in the APX series to participate, but we'd be happy to talk to you about what that would look like. But we will be advancing that project in the second half of this year. And ultimately, if we can find COTAK member agencies that often operate in areas with poor or no connectivity, we will try to prioritize them to participate in this pilot project. So that's connectivity. The other question that we get a lot is how do we prevent data saturation or data overload with the apps? As you saw, there's a lot of dots that you can see. There's a lot of stuff that you can see in the map through this technology, and it certainly can be overwhelming. And so the way that we manage that and prevent that from overwhelming our users is through channels. A channel in COTAK, it does not have anything to do with voice traffic. It's not a talk group. It's not an LMR channel. It's really simply just a way of filtering what data you see and what data you share within the apps themselves. So when you turn a channel on in this COTAK system, you start to share your location with everybody else that has that same channel turned on, and they share their location back with you. So we can tie external data feeds, such as those covert trackers or CAD data, to certain channels as well. So for the Safe Streets Task Force, their covert trackers are only visible when they're on the Safe Streets channel. So as long as you have one channel that's turned on that's in common with another user, you'll be able to have full interoperability with them, where you can see their location, you can drop a point, draw a shape, and share that with them. And so, as you might imagine, channels have a lot to do with mutual aid as well. We have a couple different ways of allowing multiple agencies to collaborate using COTAK. At the very top, we have several different statewide mutual aid channels that are automatically available to all users of COTAK. So our ultimate backstop is something called Colorado All Users MAC, where absolutely every one of the 3,000 people in COTAK have access to that channel. And if they turn that on, they'll be able to see each other no matter what. Zooming in a little bit, we can group agencies into really any arbitrary combination of agencies, but we typically do it along county or regional boundaries. And so if we want to set up a Mesa County channel in COTAK, we can do that and add all 12 of the COTAK agencies that operate within Mesa County, group them all together, and then we can create channels that are available to all of the users of those agencies for county-level mutual aid. And then where we turn that over to each of our member agencies is they can create channels for their daily operations. So, for example, Grand Junction Fire Department has joined COTAK. They have a channel, GJFD Fire Ops, that is just available to their personnel and their personnel only. And then on the law enforcement side, we can create smaller channels that are only given out on a name-by-name basis. So drug task forces, SWAT teams, folks like that, they can create a channel that only their 12 or 20 people have access to, and the other remaining officers in the department don't get access to that. So when you boil all that down, here's an example from a user of what the channels list that they actually see on their app is. And again, this information, it's all created by our web application within cotak.gov. So it's kind of the equivalent of over-the-air programming, where that agency administrator and our team can program all of this stuff, and it just shows up on your phone when you open the app up, and you'll get this channels list. So this user, he's part of Frisco Police Department in Summit County. So he gets several different statewide mutual aid channels that are up at the top of the slide here. He also gets a channel that's just for Frisco PD officers, so only their folks get access to it. And then he gets several county-wide channels. So he's got some county-wide channels for Summit County. There's one just for law enforcement, and then there's one for all hazards mutual aid. And then because he's a part of they call their SWAT team their MERT team for some reason, and he's a part of that team, and so he was added by name to that channel, and only people that are on the MERT team get access to that. So typically our users, they have some combination of channels like this where they've got stuff that's available just to their agency, as well as county-wide and statewide mutual aid channels. In the LMR world, you guys have channel patching, and we've had a lot of requests from our users for an equivalent capability in COTAK. And so this is a new development from last year. We call this interagency channels. It's similar but different from how an LMR patch works. And we'll walk you through just an example of how that would be deployed. So you've got two agencies that work together frequently, Douglas County Search and Rescue and El Paso County Sheriff's Office. They don't want to set up a permanent mutual aid channel, but maybe they need to work together, or they just don't want to formalize this under a mutual aid plan. What they can do is Douglas County can, through our web application, they can search for agencies to invite to an interagency channel. They can find El Paso County Sheriff's Office, invite them to join a channel that they manage, and El Paso County can accept or decline that request. So it's kind of a handshake process. Both sides have to agree to share information, but they can do all of that without involving the state at all. And so once they've agreed to create an interagency channel, they have their list of people that are part of each of those two agencies. Our system joins that into a single list of users and gives them access to a special channel in the app. And so this is what that looks like, is they've got the Douglas County folks, they have their channel that's just got Douglas County people in it. Let's see. And then down here is where we've added that channel that has the El Paso County users to it. And so Really the way that this differs from an LMR patch is in LMR, you just keep your existing channels, your existing talk groups, and you've just patched them together. With COTAK, the existing channels just stay the same. They only have access to their original users, and we create a new channel on the fly that accomplishes that patch where multiple agencies can now see each other. So that's really the key thing to remember, is it just creates a new channel on the fly, because again, we can do this over-the-air programming to allow folks to do that collaboration. And then when you're done, either agency can opt out of that patch at any point. And then the final way we do mutual aid is a user can be a part of more than one agency. So once you have your COTAK account, you can log into our website, and there is a web page where you can request to join a second or a third or a fourth agency, and you just indicate what agency you want to join. The administrator of that agency gets to vet that request and either accept it or reject it, and if they accept, you're now a member of multiple agencies. So that's how we accomplish mutual aid in this system. We're certainly always looking to make it better and always happy to accept feedback from our users to try to improve that, but we have those three main ways of providing mutual aid. If you have not signed up for COTAK and you want to do so, you do that by going to cotak.gov, our website. There's a prominent button that says sign up. Go ahead and click that, enter your agency, and we'll vet that request to make sure it's legitimate, and if it is, we'll accept you as a member agency, and you will automatically become the first agency administrator for that agency. So you'll be able to create your users, create your channels, do all that good stuff through our website. We do provide a lot of outreach and training materials. We have a lot of training videos that are hosted on our website. And then we also have now hired a 5-person staff of liaisons that provide that in-person training and outreach. So if you'd like that, again, hit us up with an email and request that, and we'd be happy to provide that to you. We also have a lot of train the trainer content, both videos and PowerPoints, where you can put on a training yourself on this technology. And then finally, I am excited to say we haven't issued a save the date yet, but I think we're close enough to booking the venue that I'm happy to announce it. Next summer, so not this July, but next July in 2026, we'll be holding our first ever COTAK user conference in Copper Mountain, where we'll be able to get all of the member agencies that want to attend together in one room to provide much more in-depth briefings on where the system is, hopefully exchange user stories, and really build that COTAK community out further. So with that, I think I've only got a couple minutes for any questions, but would be happy to take that at this time. Otherwise, our generic support email is there, as well as my email. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to any of those addresses, and we'd be happy to chat with you further. So, any questions at this time? Yes, in the green shirt. Yeah, so adding administrators, we don't have a way for you to do that yourself. You would file a support ticket, either by emailing that support@cotak.gov address or contacting your liaison, and then we will bump up whatever names you give us to also be agency administrators. So yeah, in terms of filtering AVL and CAD data, it's really, our liaison team would work with you to figure out your requirements, and we would bundle that up into a deployment plan. And so JeffCom is probably our biggest, so it's a great example where we've actually created 2 different channels, one for fire incidents and one for law incidents. That CAD and AVL data that we get from JeffCom has tags to indicate if it's a law or fire, and so we're able to take that tag and break that into 2 different channels on the COTAK side. So we could do similar stuff based on your requirements. And in the black shirt? The question was, do we do support for single sign-on? And unfortunately, the answer is no. We have to have a lot of extra information about our users in terms of what channels they have membership into. And so that type of information is not supported by a single sign-on provider. So we've actually built our own sign-on and operate our own sign-on system. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, so with that being said, we're still running slightly ahead of schedule, which is good. I want to give